that bitch.
Your co-host, James McVeigh.
Hello. For childhood arrivals.
Okay, right on. So I'm going to have to read it because I'm not a lawyer and I don't remember shit. So Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, also known as DACA, is an American immigration policy established by the Obama administration in June 2012. DACA allows certain illegal immigrants who entered the country as minors to receive a renewable 2-year period of deferred action from deportation and eligibility for a work permit. Approximately 800,000 such young people, referred to as Dreamers after the DREAM Act, were enrolled in the program as of 2017. Do you want me to keep going for the second paragraph here? I'm not. All right, sure. In November 2000, in November 2014, President Barack Obama attempted to expand DACA to cover additional immigrants, but multiple states sued to prevent implementation of the expansion, and it was ultimately blocked by the courts. As of June 2017, the United States Department of Homeland Security rescinded the expansion while continuing to review the existence of DACA program in a whole. And as we all know, yesterday, DACA was rescinded by the Trump administration, but implementation was delayed 6 months to give Congress time to come up with a solution for the population that was previously eligible for DACA.
Awesome.
That was Wikipedia.
My little birds tell me that Matthew has something to say about this.
Yeah. I don't do a whole lot of DACA. I actually worked for Catholic Charities. I did an internship there when DACA was first implemented, and then I worked for the government reviewing DACA benefits that were being requested. So I guess I've got some experience on both sides doing both, but I haven't handled those types of cases in a while. I do a lot of business immigration, but still know the basics and can talk about it. If there are any specific questions, I mean, we could get into the constitutionality of it, which I guess is open to every lawyer's opinion.
I'm pretty sure, Matthew, that you prefer Matt or Matthew.
Either way.
Well, I'm pretty sure we're going to get into that. Constitutional law is one of my favorite things as well. But I mean, I'm a criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, and that's still, we play plenty with the criminal elements, at least, of the Constitution, but I love constitutional law. You would ask the conservative libertarian if he believes an executive order is unconstitutional. Yes, it's unconstitutional across the board. I mean, not only that, but it's specifically a congressional purview. Congress has, since the very beginning of understanding the Constitution, had the actual purview over immigration in general. I guess you want to say border control or something of that nature. But I want to say, and I'm probably off base here, but I'm not entirely sure. I want to say that's Article 1, Section 8 that specifically names Congress in charge of immigration. This is something the president really doesn't have a say in too much. On that note, though, I respect the decision Obama made to do it because Congress would not. And hell, why not? I mean, Congress, if you don't know, President Obama was a very learned constitutional scholar himself. He probably knows that he's abusing the Constitution when he did it. But it's still kind of a gray area with executive order. So, yes, unconstitutional, but no, I still think it was a good idea.
So the president, of course, has the authority to enforce immigration laws, and he's the only person that has the authority to enforce really any laws passed by Congress. And so in doing that, I think, well, first let's take a step back. And what is DACA exactly? DACA is no legal status. What it is basically a prosecutor agreeing in advance that they're not going to proceed with deportation, with removal proceedings against a particular class or an alien. Usually it's applied individually. Mm-hmm. And what happens in those cases when a prosecutor, usually Immigration and Customs Enforcement, makes the decision to not remove a person, they're given deferred status, work permit. Basically what DACA is a more widespread version of what prosecutors had been doing on a smaller level. And so it really is, in my opinion, something already being done by the executive. It's just, it was more widespread and expansive than what had been being done at that low level.
Let me ask you a couple of questions if you're familiar with it, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Is there a set standard, like say rule requirement for do you apply for DACA, like age limit, background check, things of that nature?
So in order to qualify, you had to have entered the country before your 14th birthday, on the date 16th. That 16th birthday, and attended, either obtain a GED or be in school, have no significant criminal history. Am I forgetting any qualifications there?
Okay, so we do have a set of qualifications. Is there like a database or a labeling of a group? If you apply for DACA, do you fall into like the DACA group, I suppose?
So you file with U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. They review it. They put you into the system, run a background check on you for criminal history issues. And along with that, basically, it's an application for employment authorization document.
Sure. But there's a set of requirements. I'm saying, do you fall into a category? I guess you want to call them dreamers, but people who qualify for it, as long as you hit the qualification points, you're sold, correct?
As long as you qualify to have your deportation, or what is the real term is removal.
Wait, can I ask a question?
Then yeah, you get your work permit.
Okay, cool. Essentially, you fall into this group. Lace, what were you going to ask?
So I tried to research this a while back and I failed because I don't practice this area. And one of the things that I didn't understand is this doesn't give you citizenship. Oh. Right?
Not
like
all.
If you're a young kid and you are in DACA and you get it through 18 and you haven't ever gotten arrested, do they deport you at 18?
No, you can reapply. It's a 2-year reapplication period.
But is it a guarantee? Like, do you have to keep going back every 4 years of your life without certainty of whether or not some president is going to get elected that deports you? Like, at what point have you paid your debt to society if you start DACA?
Matthew, I want to defer right back to you on that one, because I know you.
Yeah. So it's just the reason why I'm confused why people are freaking out about DACA is that it's deferred limbo status. You're unlawfully present in the United States, and at any time, even not necessarily as much under the Obama administration, but under the Trump administration, even before DACA was rescinded, ICE prosecutors were saying, that's great that you were granted an EAD. We've decided that we're not going to follow that on an individual basis. Even though you've committed no crimes or done anything, you were picked up on a routine traffic stop. And a police officer in Texas has now decided, because of SB4, he's an immigration officer.
He's referring to ICE.
And he referred him to ICE, and ICE is like, well, we're going to, I see you've got DACA, but we don't care. You're deported. And so the status, these people don't have a legal status. And they're in, I could not live like these people are living where.
Matt, you just took the word out of my sails, man. I was going to shit all over this as still being unconstitutional, but I did not know that we were still individually enforcing SB4 and things like that. And we were just moving people out on an individual basis. But what I was going to say was, what I was going to get at. Sure, because they're not protected. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I was trying to go on. Whoa. I was trying to finish my thought because I wanted to hear what Matt had to say. I know he knows what he's talking about. So I asked certain questions to build this up, and that's where it comes from. The closest comparison I can think to in just general terms of criminal law or something of that nature would be like a deferment or diversion program. Essentially, where we all recognize that this program exists, we use it. If you don't have any criminal background, you fall into a certain category of people with a checklist or qualifications. If you qualify for diversion, then you can go through a probationary period. You would normally go through anyway for a crime, but at the end of it, it'll be expunged. The only difference is that every state that I know of that uses these programs, that's codified in law. That statute passed by their general assemblies or congresses or whatever system they use for the state.
You practice in Texas?
The issue that comes up here is exactly what you already addressed, Matt, and that if ICE or CBE or anybody else decides they want to take it into their own hands and be on an individual basis and prosecute, even though you're DACA qualified, your ass is getting deported. You know, like those are the rules. This is not a law, and I had no idea we weren't treating it as a law. See, I thought the whole issue here was that we were treating this executive order as if it were actual law, like we were changing the way immigration worked. I didn't realize that we were picking up DACA people who are qualified and part of this program and still deporting them anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're why I like. Here's what, the way I see it. We don't have enough resources to deport 11 million people or whatever the current figure is. We don't have enough. And so, I really liked Obama's policies from an enforcement standpoint. He deported more people than any president before him. And 94% of the people that he deported were criminals, because what he did was he earmarked all the good hombres and all the DACA folks. He wanted to earmark DAPA, Deferred Action, for parental arrivals. who also had no criminal records and contributing members of society. But that got that didn't pass through the judiciary. He wanted to earmark all the good people so that he could focus resources on all the bad ones. Now, flash forward to Trump's ICE raids in Austin as kind of retribution for this so-called sanctuary city policy. Of the people that were rounded up, 55% were non-criminals. Now, we're deporting 55% of a couple hundred people in the weekend of raids that have no criminal record or probably contributing members of society. And that's several hundred people, criminals, that could have been deported with those resources. And so the scattershot approach I don't like. And I liked programs like DACA that didn't grant any status, that brought people into light, got them a work, got them an EAD card, a work permit, employment authorization document, and allowed them to get a driver's license, allowed them to be put on insurance so that when they hit my car, they'll have a driver's license and insurance and not be driving around without. Because in Texas, as you know, you've got to drive to do anything.
Tennessee's the same way.
Bring them into the light.
I'm with you there. So I get
plug real quick. That's why they pass all this bullshit. If you're a transgender or on birth control and we're a Christian owner of a business, we don't have to pay for we can refuse services to you laws in Texas, because they know that effectively cuts it off to people, because they have to be able to, it's going to be a long way to the next Walgreens when you're out in Boondock, Texas, where they don't.
Are you implying that that's a strategic move to starve people to death? Or
no, to deny them services that are
I'm curious.
religiously immoral.
No, I understand, and I think you combined the concept of food deserts.
No, I'm not. I'm very sure what I'm talking about, because I'm a huge feminist, and I'm saying, like, if I'm a pharmacist and I can deny birth control to someone because Texas passes a law that says that I can, that could effectively make it to where people in rural areas are unable to get to another place to be helped. It makes it more, it's a burden place.
Isn't that counterintuitive to what we normally describe the neoconservatives, though, in the sense that
we can get back to what we were talking about.
Are you talking about creating anchor babies?
Plug that. Huh?
I said, aren't you talking about creating anchor babies, essentially, like stopping illegals, like from being able to get birth control so that more anchor babies are created?
We can take illegals as an example, because that's one of the things I wanted to ask is what is the purpose? What's the animus underlying these laws? Is it to cut down on be able to ultimately everyone will have to pay less taxes because we're not going to have to pay for illegals? What's the purpose? Is it to be able to uphold our border laws so that we can send a signal to everyone else that, this is what we do to people that illegally cross our borders? Like, what is the purpose of the laws? The purpose of someone who wants to take away the right of kids who have lived through their whole life, it's all they've ever known. Like, what possibly could be the purpose for that?
Okay, I got a parse. I want to parse a lot of it too. Okay. Yes, I think that does actually play a huge part. I think the entire driving message of trying to court this low base of the lowest common denominator is xenophobia and racism. I mean, across the board. That's the vibe I get, even from my own party. I mean, that seems to be a thing. However, I think you have a strong argument to be made about enforcing border security and things of that nature, too. I don't think that's their intention. I think the intention is to court xenophobes and racists, but the argument still stands. Jesus, that was a train wreck of things. What else were we talking about aside from border policy?
Matt, what do you think is the purpose of the law?
Oh, God.
What law?
I think that
the executive order, whatever you want.
You mean DACA alone? I don't think DACA. I don't think the attack on. I think the attack on DACA, based on what the base wants, would be racism and xenophobia. I don't really see.
even in the core areas.
If it's an executive order that is not being treated as law, but it's this policy, the policy done changed. Like, I don't see why that's a problem at all. How does that affect anybody? I mean,
you don't think in the core areas it changes? I mean, like, there might be some people who really want to have to pay taxes for extra people that are here illegally.
If we're deporting people who are so-called dreamers already, why do we have to repeal this order? I mean, we're just ignoring it. We can do that. I mean, Trump can do that.
Yeah.
Matt,
the more people I talk to and I explain what DACA actually is, the more people have this similar response to what you're saying, which is, oh, really? You know, they get no status at all. They could be deported at any time. Any president could rescind it, regardless of whatever document you get in the mail. I mean, it's no status. It's no way to live your life in a country that you would consider your own country. And so I really do hope that Congress does something. You know, even if DACA had stayed, I would have hoped that Congress would do something. And I think it's funny that President Trump had, when he rescinded it yesterday, he said, you know, I love dreamers and I hope Congress acts. And then this morning he said something, or I'm sure it was a tweet, but he just said something like he might revisit it, meaning pass DACA again or issue an executive order again for DACA if Congress doesn't actually act on it. He just sits on it. At least that's what I got implied from what he said.
Here's my it seemed kind of odd that because he campaigned on day one repeal. DACA, and then he sort of comes in and doesn't really do anything about it, and now he's sort of deferring it, saying and giving. I mean, the legislative branch is who should be coming up with these types of policies to begin with. Yeah, now he's going to defer it to them, but then he says, kind of almost, you know how you wink, nod to the alt-right all the time. It was almost like a wink, nod to the the left a little bit, being like, hey, I'm not. We'll revisit and come back, and we'll do this if you guys don't do anything.
I want to ask a question about this specifically to Matt. Was this really just a result of some kind of executive action and Obama policy? I mean, are we really making this big of a deal out of something that was not an executive order trying to override immigration law? Because, I mean, as you explained it earlier, I understood it to be a policy essentially as deferred prosecution almost.
Right.
Saying that we're really not interested in this.
Was it in place during
we're going to null process, essentially. We're going to choose not to pursue it. So what I'm asking is, if that's the way it worked, then I don't really see it being unconstitutional. I mean, what I understood its core purpose and the way it worked was that it's meant to override immigration law to a degree, to provide a set of qualifications and standards to say, immigration statute, whatever, be damned. This is the way we do things.
Yeah, so I bet you didn't know that Obama deported more people than any other.
I did know that, and please don't box me into the normal conservative.
No. What I mean by that is that Obama doesn't go out and push that figure because that hurts his base.
Sure.
And the other side really loves to push immigration enforcement at all costs.
True. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if we're crippling the economy and doing it, or that we don't have the resources. When Obama presented what he considered a smart policy of, like we talked about earlier, all non-criminals, let's try to earmark all the good folks, all the good hombres, and go after the bad hombres. And I think that was a way for conservatives to attack him, to say, why are you, you're selectively enforcing the law.
They'll vote for you. You get votes. You'll get votes.
Well, exactly. That's what I was talking about as far as xenophobia and racism goes.
That's what I hear, is that conservatives will say that he's doing it to get votes.
I think it's a really shallow way to blanket it all into one situation, personally. I mean, I think there are legitimate concerns that can be drawn from border security as well. And I think it's really just as bad as, the opposite reaction of blanketing anybody who speaks Spanish into someone who needs to be deported.
So I think that a discussion may need to be had about kind of immigration basics. A lot of people think that, we've talked about it on this. You think that it's either citizenship or undocumented. And
no, there's huge
non-immigrants like F1 students come here. They're not allowed to have the intention to remain here indefinitely. Non-immigrants like H-1B visa holders, specialty occupation visas, they're actually allowed dual intent. You can have the intention to remain here indefinitely and have your employer sponsor permanent residency at some point. There's TN for nationals of Canada and Mexico who fall under a set list of over 60 professions like doctors, lawyers, accountants.
Yep, and you get much easier immigration status that way.
And under non-immigrant visas, you get a certain period of 1 to 5 years, depending on the visa type. There's sometimes caps on the number of visas that are available, like under the H-1B, or caps on the amount of time that you can spend in the country in that status. And then you've got to go back to your home country or change status, or whatever. The large majority of people don't qualify. Your construction worker, there's not going to usually be an immigration strategy that's right for him or her. They're not just like coming to the border and instead of paying some money to the government and taking a test, they just literally don't qualify for a immigration strategy at all. Or others who are severely backlogged. So I'm trying to think of all the other misnomers that people have. It's not that people don't qualify. And I have kind of a radical view on immigration. I think that if you have a job offer in the United States, just like if an American has a job offer in another country, I think we should be able to accept that job offer and take that position. And the one caveat that I might throw on it that's a caveat with the H-1B and a lot of the visa categories is that you have to be paid the prevailing wage that's determined by the Department of Labor for that job in that area of intended employment. That's so you're not undercutting U.S. workers.
Do you suggest? Well, hang on. Do you suggest a time period you'd have to hold that job for citizenship or permanent residency or something of that nature?
So, I would propose that to be a non-immigrant visa. So if it was the H1, if it was like an H-1B where you were allowed to eventually pursue permanent residency, you can only do so if we're going to look at the H-1B, only certain non-immigrant visas can you transition to permanent residency. Some non-immigrant visas, you're a non-immigrant who has to renew your status every 2 years or 5 years, whatever the visa is issued for, and prove every 2 or 5 years that you still qualify for that visa. Whereas once you get permanent residency, that's when I'm giving presentations about immigration basics, that's the holy grail. You've got permanent residency. You don't need an immigration attorney. You can renew that like you renew a driver's license. And after 5 years of holding permanent residency, you can apply for citizenship.
Sure.
That's the ideal.
Long process.
Yeah.
But how many effectively ever achieve that?
Oh, not many. I mean, I don't know from Matt's anecdotal experience, but I can just tell you as an overall arching understanding of this concept, that's a very rare percentage. I mean, we're talking single digits.
So to bring it back to DACA, these people that have been unlawfully present in the United States, if they've been unlawfully present for 6 months or more, there's a 3-year bar to once they depart the country, there's a 3-year bar for them ever coming back for any reason. They don't qualify for a visa. If they are here a year or more unlawfully present, there's a 10-year bar. Now, you can get a waiver of that bar if you, for example, have this is kind of comical, but U.S. citizenship children, U.S. citizen children who have autism, who, if you were deported, these USCs are going to be severely disadvantaged. They need you there, and you can get a waiver for that. But you're talking for these DACA people. There's really no hope absent congressional intervention because most of them have at least a 10-year bar.
And that was my understanding.
What they're proposing is conditional permanent residence, contingent upon meeting certain obligations, and then you can remove your conditions. It's very similar to when for marriage-based permanent residency. If it's a new marriage, you get your spouse who's a foreign national gets conditional permanent residency, and after 2 years they can remove conditions if you can establish that it was a bona fide marriage. And I've been in. Right. So you know, of a similar, right now what's being proposed is conditional permanent residency, and then after a certain period of time, full permanent residency, and after 5 years of holding permanent residency and being physically present in the United States for half of the time, those people can apply for citizenship.
I would love, no, I mean, I would obviously love for everyone to ideally get along where the Republicans and the Democrats show they can be moderate to one another and just work together for legislation to resolve this problem. Because I think anyone with a conscience could agree that kids should not be treated like that. We have special laws in every jurisdiction. Like, if you do bad things to a minor, you're prosecuted more harshly. Like, how does the reverse not ring true in immigration law and how it's enforced? Yeah. Yeah. I think you give them a sense of, if someone wants to come to our country and be like, please take me, like, you know, I'm going to be a productive member of society. I've come from this oppressive area and I just want to be an American. Let them be an American. That's what made America America. And like, I just think it's so awful to do this. I think it's horrible to deport people that have done nothing wrong. I think what we should do, but let me just finish my final thoughts on the whole how to fix this. And I know it's probably impractical, but we're big on notice. Constitutionally, everyone should have due process. I think what America should do is say, look, we're going to give calculate whatever time it is for like a month's worth of travel across whatever they have to travel to like get here, give notice somehow, like, or 6 months would probably be reasonable. 6 months notice. In 6 months, the United States is not going to let anyone in. We don't care who you are, how old, how young, how whatever. We're not letting anyone in illegally. And then that gives the people that are already en route here time to get here. And then we can give all of them a chance to at least meet like a minimum criteria that would make them worthy or not worthy of entering. And we can bicker over the details of that. But I feel like there's a way to do this that isn't so, I don't know, heartless.
I mean, I guess if we're going to talk ideology, I would tell you that as a conservative libertarian, I believe in open borders, and you shouldn't be subject to deportation if you haven't broken a criminal law. I mean, I don't understand the concept of keeping people out or not letting them be subject to our own constitutional protections when they're within our borders. I mean, this isn't. Well, some, yes. Yeah, try being somebody who's in the immigration realm where they're not a citizen and trying to find out how you can parse what rights out of the Bill of Rights that actually apply to you. I mean, it's a very gray area. Courts rule one way, they rule another. It goes back and forth, depends on the jurisdiction. It's pretty wild. I mean, and I don't practice immigration law. I just happen to know this, but it's a fucking minefield. What I don't understand, this is the concept that doesn't make sense to me. Why should citizens in this country get greater constitutional protections, greater rights than any other person who's in this country? Anyone want to debate that, I suppose, on our way out of this topic? I mean, really, when you think about it, shouldn't every person in this jurisdiction be subject to the same rules and regulations everybody else is? What does it matter that we have a caste system? I mean, what is going on here? Well, sure, but then the question is when people get upset about it and they want to try to enforce it one way or the other or talk to ICE or do something, oftentimes it involves somebody speaking fucking Spanish.
Yeah, everyone has its way, and I mean, I've heard about the way that Canada does one part of their immigration system, and because English and French are a national language there, they have that as their point system of benefit if you speak English or French. And so he put together, I don't know if you saw the proposal, but it was an incoherent amalgamation of this one permanent residency visa strategy that Canada has, their points-based system. And it really doesn't work. We don't have an official language in this country. And I was just thinking of an argument that I had with someone. I always have these arguments with people about immigration because I bring it up and then people, it's a controversial issue, and then it ends up they want to fight me, which is always fun. This one, this was a first-generation American, and he had very conservative beliefs. He believed that people should do it the right way, and that we shouldn't let people in from Syria. And I said, okay, well, how did your parents immigrate here? And he said, well, they came here as students. They overstayed their visas. This is what I found out over our conversation. They came in as students. They overstayed their visas. They worked in restaurants. And I said, okay, restaurants, okay. So they overstayed their visas to work in restaurants. There's no visa type for working in restaurants.
No, of course not.
We're violating. They were
What are they learning?
They were violating immigration laws by overstaying their student visas and then working. And so how did they end up eventually, getting their citizenship? He said, well, they happen to be from Taiwan. And at the time, people fleeing communist China were granted asylum status, which is basically the same thing as refugee status. They're both humanitarian-based immigration. Except the difference is that his parents came here, were not vetted abroad for a period of up to 2 years, at least 18 months through 2 years, which is what we have refugees abroad for that duration.
Asylum doesn't involve that at all. Does it?
Asylum, you show up and you ask for asylum.
Yep, that's what I thought.
So I was like, do you realize?
Is it for a lifetime?
Well, I was like, do you realize that?
Is it for a lifetime?
Asylum? Oh, yes. No, asylum grants you citizenship.
Well, you get asylum, and after a period of time, you get permanent residency and then citizenship.
Got it.
Yeah. It's a track-based program, but as long as you don't fuck it up royally, you're getting citizenship.
Right.
Fastest way.
You commit violent felonies or drug-based felonies in the meantime and all kinds of other shit, but yeah.
Well, typically you're inadmissible and removable if you commit crimes while you're even in asylum.
Oh, yes, exactly. Misdemeanors are often accepted, but yeah,
right.
You're on felony level drug crimes, especially, or felony level violent crimes. Your ass is out.
Right. Or
I mean, under Obama, that's where Obama deported. I mean, that's how he got his deportation numbers. Is he was deporting drug felons and violent felons to the nth degree,
which is great. I mean,
I don't know about drug felons. That depends, but again, that's libertarian in me. But either way, yeah. No, that's if you're going to deport people, maybe deport the people who are committing felonies.
Right.
Those are the people you really don't want. Anyway, so speaking of
taco stands in Austin,
speaking of people who speak Spanish, constitutional rights, and all of these fun things. Anybody want to touch Sheriff Joe Arpaio and his wonderful pardon that he received?
I saw Lace claps. Lace was clapping over there.
I'm not clapping. I'm throwing up in my mouth.
She's a staunch defender of Arpaio. Lace is.
I know her well.
I was like, arrivederci at Arpaio. And then Trump brought him back from the dead like a freaking zombie king. Horrible.
Were you going for Avada Kedavra or what were you saying? Anyway, I mean, those are pretty claims. I'm wondering, you're saying a lot of stuff right out of the gate. Racist, monster, concentration camps. What are we talking about here? I mean, thank you. That's where the city of Phoenix is, and it's in Arizona.
And it's more arid than it is.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think what David's trying to say here. What David's trying to say here is that Sheriff Joe Arpaio, and I don't know how to say his name, to be honest with you, because
Arpaio. I don't know.
Arpaio sounds good to me. I'm going to go with that. We can just call him Sheriff Joe. Anyway, Sheriff Joe has been famous for a long time in this country for his no-nonsense, go-get-em style of police enforcement. But essentially what happened was that he was sued by several American citizens of Hispanic descent for violating their constitutional rights as it applies to racial profiling and things of this nature, because he had this policy where if his police had reason, or his deputies or anybody under his purview had reasonable suspicion to believe that you were an illegal immigrant, they would detain you to determine your citizenship status or your immigration status to see if you had a right to be in this country. If you don't do a racial profile on your constitutional rights, that's a no-no and a bad thing. So obviously, he lost. Maricopa County lost. Payouts of $7 million, several $1 million happened. And there was kind of a sidebar, I guess, suit where someone was looking for injunction of stopping this policy. Federal court took it up and told him, you can't do this. You're violating the Fourth Amendment to the nth degree. It's not acceptable. Here's how you need to proceed. He refused to do so. He kind of spat in the court's face and said, well, that's just not how we do it. I'm enforcing a state law, and we're going to deport anybody who needs to be deported based on my decision on how we stop them, what we do to profile them. What that really meant was, are you brown? Do you speak Spanish? You're being arrested and detained against your will until we can verify your immigration status through ICE. He continued to do that. He was more than not to do it. Anyway, he was held in contempt after a hearing. It wasn't just a motion sua sponte by the court, but actually they required the state to prove at the hearing that he was in contempt of court. They did so. He was going to be sentenced, and Donald Trump decided that he would pardon him. So there's been this huge kerfuffle over whether or not he's enforcing state law and he's protecting people by keeping immigrant criminals out, or why does it matter if he's pardoned? It was just this misdemeanor. It was only punishable by 6 months in imprisonment.
His legendary civil rights violations.
Oh yes, no, he was definitely found, I guess, liable or in violation of a lot of civil rights across the board.
Join us.
He's muted.
Hi, I'm Bill. Siobhan is the one who added me. I'm the pharmacist in East Texas, and I'm going to mute myself while I cook food for the next couple of days.
Hi, Bill. My sister's a pharmacist.
Hi, tell me I'm so sorry.
No, it's cool.
Oh my God, man, welcome.
Yeah, Siobhan convinced me to pop in and see what's up.
Okay, we just decided we'd open up the can of worms on Sheriff Joe Arpaio, and I had to give a little convoluted backstory on that because we went, I'll let David take it. He went right into racist and concentration camp and shit. But yeah, no, I agree with that. But if you're going to they come from a very liberal perspective, yes, I can. Let's start with Chelsea Manning and a commutation. It's not a pardon; it's a commutation of sentence. But sucks, man. A lot of people kill themselves in prison. But anyway, I don't want to get off on that sidetrack. I'm just saying my point was to chastise you just a little bit about starting from a negative premise. Let's talk about some stuff before you just go straight into concentration camps and racist cocksucker and, whatever. Yeah, I think you just question with the political ally of Donald Trump. Like, so for some reason, 35 to 38% of this country clings to that. So, I mean, to start by just introducing the topic with racist and concentration camp and all this, I mean, we should probably talk about it a little bit. Well, I suppose let's start. Yeah, well, I really wouldn't disagree with you, but same point. I think it's at least fair to start from Sheriff Joe's perspective of saying that he's enforcing Arizona state law. I mean, there is a state law.
Yeah, there's a lot of civil rights.
Is it his job to interpret the Constitution, or is it his job to enforce law?
That's really the question.
Yeah, he thinks he's Batman, or he thought he was Batman. I'm sure Batman committed a lot of constitutional violations, but
Batman.
Whoa! But would you really think he was Batman?
Okay, yeah, no, fat old white man who thinks he's hot shit and hates Mexicans is not Batman.
Hey, man, Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne was a cold-blooded Republican 1%.
Goddamn right he was. Not only that, Bruce Wayne.
Come on, man.
Bruce Wayne.
I was recently told that if you watch Batman versus Superman, you see that Batman really is a bad guy.
I thought it was the other way around.
Shit movie.
Bruce Wayne pays a lower percentage of taxes than his secretary. Top 1/10 of 1%.
Anyway,
in government welfare to them, working class employees more than any other percentage of Americans.
Okay. I tried to play some lip service to Joe Arpaio, but seriously though, like Jesus Christ, where do we start?
Tough on crime. He's tough on crime.
Okay, I want to ask Matt. Okay, Matt, again, back to immigration, Matt. Like, how much do you know about Joe Arpaio and kind of what is your?
Oh, excuse me.
From an immigration perspective.
Well, no, just in general. I mean, how much do you know about the case and I guess against him, where it applies? Because I can talk about the criminal aspect all day because he violated the holy living fuck out of the Fourth Amendment. But
yeah, so the Arizona law is actually relatively similar to SB4, where they were asking people about their immigration status. And I don't know. Honestly, it's been some time, so I don't know the specifics of that case. But I know a lot about SB4, and I can say wholeheartedly that police officers should not be charged with interpreting immigration laws. And honestly, a lot of Customs and Border Protection and Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers already have enough trouble figuring out immigration laws, and that's their job.
Immigration law is very convoluted. Like it's kind of an elite class of people who practice certain criminal types of aspects or criminal law. Like that is some convoluted shit, man.
It's a good time to be an immigration lawyer because it's confusing.
Yeah.
It's not. Trump has driven up fear and even more frustration and confusion. And so, to give a good plug for me, not really a plug, but they're coming to me and not coming to people that dabble in immigration, because there are the dabblers out there that botch cases. And so people like me who do immigration only all day, every day, really seeing a benefit there, which is to the detriment of the common people, of course. But going back to SB4, basically it says that local law enforcement agencies can't tell the police officers not to ask about immigration status of people that they detain. They don't define the word detain. And so we've recently seen, even before SB4 was implemented, where officers will pull over someone in a routine traffic stop, request their driver's license. When someone does not provide a state driver's license, that's when they ask, "What's your immigration status? Show me your papers," or whatever.
That's pretty gray right there. I'm going to tell you the state criminal aspect. That's extremely gray, because you are driving, you must be licensed to drive.
Right.
So they do have a right to ask for that.
Right.
So I'm sorry, continue, because now I want to know where this goes, because the plot is unfolding here.
Yeah. So I guess to continue with the example that a client we represented was pulled over a routine traffic stop. If applied under SB4 is implemented, They're only supposed to ask about immigration status if the person's detained, which we interpret to mean more than just you don't have a driver's license.
Well, under the Constitution, as far as state law applies, and how it kind of channels through the 14th through the 4th, if you are pulled over, you're being detained.
Okay.
If you have blue lights behind you, you're detained. I mean, if you stop, you don't feel free to go. It's a reasonable person standard from an objective reasonable person, not subjective, but objective. Would a reasonable person feel free to drive away once they've had somebody with blue lights behind them?
I guess I should have said it's routine traffic stops that are actually mentioned in SB4 as not being considered detained.
Okay. Sorry.
And I mean, otherwise it's not really defined. And anyway, so in the case that I'm thinking of, the officer asked to see their immigration documents. They presented documents showing that they had an expired H-1B visa, but that they had an approved permanent residency. And they were in valid status. They had, long story short, they were in valid status, but the officer didn't know how to review their documents and detained them for apparently 48 hours in excess of well, they didn't. It wasn't an arrestable offense, so they detained them for 48 hours. ICE came and picked them up.
What else did they do wrong? Was it just like speeding or something?
It was, I believe, it was at a checkpoint.
Immigration. What kind of checkpoint?
I believe it was an immigration checkpoint because they were doing those in Austin.
You can do state level immigration checkpoints. That's a great question. I don't believe that. That doesn't sound constitutional.
I guess they pulled him over for speeding or something. Let's not go down there.
That's what I'm wondering. No, that's what I'm curious. 48 hours is a reasonable amount of time to detain anybody inside of the reasonable. The rule on a federal and state level is you can be detained however a reasonable amount of time is to confirm or abate the suspicions of the rule you broke. 48 hours for a state level officer to hold you for suspecting that you violated a federal law he doesn't have the fucking jurisdiction to enforce in the first place is insane.
And that's the exact point that I'm making is the 48 hours is what I know. You know, I don't know why the person was stopped in the first place, but the person was in state jail for 48 hours. They were doing everything the quote unquote right way. The normal path for that person who's an Indian national is, you know, you get out of school, you get an H-1B visa. Within the first 7 years of having an H-1B visa, your employer sponsors for permanent residency. And unfortunately, there's a period where the face of your visa says that it's expired, but
I know what you're talking about. I understand. Yeah.
There's kind of a limbo, but you have your valid documents.
We do know, however, in this case you're talking about, these were state agents, not federal agents.
Right. These were state police officers in the Houston area who detained this person for 48 hours.
To verify federal immigration.
Right. Waiting for ICE to pick them up, thinking that they had an ICE hold and they didn't need to release the person.
That's wait. They thought that did they have any kind of
so they alerted ICE, and then ICE said, "Hold on to that person." ICE came, and ICE actually agreed with him that person was in invalid status, and so we show up to immigration court, and I wasn't the one handling the case, but our attorney showed up to immigration court. The judge immediately starts chewing out ICE, and it's like, is this your first day on the job? Like, do you not know how H-1B to permanent residency works? And reamed them for about an hour. And was like, see, in this hour that I took to ream you, this person was sitting in jail for 48 hours and they were doing everything the right way. And and I said something at the end, like, we're preserving error for appeal. And the judge was like,
yeah, I'm sure they are. Sorry. I mean, this is, every time I hear someone bitch about federal courts, this is how I feel about it every time. Federal courts really are the last bastion of justice in this country. I mean, I don't want to talk shit about my local judges because, honestly, we have a pretty good set of local judges where I'm at. on a state level, even on the appellate level and our Supreme Court, Tennessee's really not doing too badly with people who are actually fair. But the people who actually give a shit on a district level, who actually know the law and deal with it on a day-to-day basis, and they're well-versed in the complicated stuff, are federal circuit judges. Those people tend to know what the hell they're talking about. And they get overturned and whatever. But yes, I'm with that judge. Hallelujah.
Well, an immigration court's actually before administrative judges. So.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's a totally different thing. But also, those people are no slouches either.
I know I'm being recorded, so I won't comment on it.
I understand.
Lies.
Anywho,
I guess you can board it to ICE.
Yeah. So how did that? That's the real question here. Is your experiences? How does that apply to Joe Arpaio?
You're talking to me?
Yeah. Shit, who else is the immigration lawyer here who was just talking for a long time about federal versus state and state detainment?
I don't like it when states try to get involved in something that's too complicated for really, 99% of the people to get involved.
What is your understanding of federal law and the Constitution as it applies? Do you think states have any jurisdiction whatsoever to cooperate?
I think that when there's a public health crisis or something like that, and I mean, Texas has taken the approach that this is a crisis that they need to.
Let me pause you and see what I want to see what David was going to say, because I think. Sure. We're talking about Sheriff Joe in Maricopa County.
I mean, if you want my opinion, it's that I don't know. Where I guess I would go with this is I would try to reroute the conversation to the sanctuary cities ban, and how in Texas we're now requiring all local municipalities to respond in the affirmative to any detainer requests from ICE. And in the past,
fuck the 10th Amendment, right? Fuck the 10th Amendment. Anyway, continue. So
yeah. So in the past, when ICE had a warrant, then we would follow the warrant that ICE provided, and even sanctuary cities follow those warrants provided by ICE. As when any federal agency sends you a request, that means that they don't have a warrant, and so-called sanctuary cities, if it wasn't a felony or murder or significant enough crime in their opinion, they were declining their requests and releasing those people on a. I'm not a criminal lawyer, but they were bonding them out versus putting an ICE hold on them.
My understanding on the state level for sanctuary cities, because Nashville kind of tries to do the same thing. It's not just refusing to accept these, detainer orders or whatever, where they don't have a warrant.
Requests.
They also, or detainer requests. You're correct. Yeah, sorry. It's also that they won't inquire to their immigration status at all. Just on a municipality level or on the state ordinances or whatever.
Right.
I see absolutely no problem with that. Again, but that's coming from, like I was making my joke about fuck the 10th Amendment. The state should be able to decide what it wants to do as far as immigration is concerned, as long as it's not stepping on the toes of the federal government's immigration policy. So if it's more lax than the federal government's immigration policy, I mean, I don't see the problem at all. I don't see how that's illegal or anything of that nature. I mean, a state is under no obligation to enforce federal laws or to check federal laws or to inquire about federal laws.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I pick up somebody who looks Hispanic that's speaking Spanish and I'm in, bumfuck Tennessee where I live, the question is, why would I ever ask him about his immigration status? What do I care if he's illegal or not? It's not my problem. I'm investigating local crime where my jurisdiction is, correct?
Yeah, and so I guess in what Texas is doing, the sanctuary city ban, I suppose that I'm fine with requiring local municipalities to honor all requests from ICE.
Why?
If we want to spend state resources on detaining people for longer than they need to be detained, then we can do that. I personally think that should be the federal purview, and we shouldn't do that for insignificant crimes.
Sure.
And to let local municipalities do what they want to do on that. But I can see from a state standpoint that they may want to tell their agencies, you need to respond to these requests. Even though they're not warranted, you need to respond to these requests. Now, to what Texas is doing, which is prohibiting local municipalities from telling their officers that they can't inquire about the immigration status, and creating a process where individuals can complain to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General can sue municipalities and sheriffs if they do have such a policy, or if they indicate anything, like if they say, hey man, let it lie, then they could be sued criminally, prosecuted criminally for stopping something from being asked. So I think I don't want police officers asking those questions, but I'm fine if states want to spend resources on responding to requests or responding to ICE detainer requests.
If I may, anybody else have thoughts on this before I pose our free-for-all question? Somebody can get involved, because I feel like Matt and I have just been kind of jabber-jawing back and forth about immigration.
Well, y'all are two lawyers, and there's one lawyer here who knows what's going on. So, yeah, of course.
Well, what do you guys think? I'll let you have that.
Y'all are so high level, like beyond anything that I've thought about. So I don't have much to contribute this week.
Well, I want to know what you think, though, Evan, because I feel like sometimes lawyers can get lost with their heads up their butts. So I want to hear someone who.
Are we making sense?
Trigger.
No, y'all are making sense. Y'all are making sense. I just, it's one of those things where I can respect when I'm like completely out of my expertise or any kind of knowledge, and there's people that do know what they're talking about are in the room, and that's usually a good time to sit back and listen, because when it comes to immigration, I don't know the first damn thing really. That's why when I showed up today and I was like, "What's on the docket?" David goes, "DACA," and I was like, "Fuck." I went, "All right, shit, okay. Well, I got not much to talk about. We can talk about hurricanes. What about hurricanes, man? Weather, that's interesting, right?" But no, I really don't even have very many questions. Just because I feel like you guys are doing a good job of explaining stuff. And y'all are just talking at a level that I'm just not at. So that's why I've been so quiet. The concentration camps. It took you 2 seconds, David, to go to concentration camp.
Concentration camp. But yeah, I want to say that. I don't. What? I didn't get anything wrong. I'm saying depending what version of it's being reported. No, as a program, from the way it's described, it is unconstitutional. There's a qualification system where you stick people into it. But if it's not being enforced that way, why would we ever consider it unconstitutional? It's not being enforced that way. So who gives a shit? You know, I mean, if it's a recommendation program, that's what I said from the get-go.
Hey, what's that?
I told Matt he shit on my initial response, and because of that, I was like, I didn't know we were deporting DACA like registered members for bullshit crimes and whatever. I didn't know we were doing that already. I thought it was actually I'm buying the media here, but I thought the way it was being implemented was that as if it were an actual like codified guideline. I don't see. It's not as offensive to the Constitution as it's not. If it's being interpreted in a manner where it's not a set of guidelines, but more of like prosecutorial discretion, it's not as offensive to the Constitution. Is it still offensive to the Constitution? Yes. Executive orders are offensive to the Constitution. However, it's not as bad as it once sounded. I mean, shit,
hey, let's talk about that dude, the letter that you posted today, James.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say.
Hey, we can get to it. Hey, you know what? Let's leave the exciting.
Can I read something someone said on our site about it?
Okay, I want to talk about Michael Bennett.
Yes, we're going to leave the exciting realm of immigration court law and head into race issues in America.
We didn't let the Fourth Amendment go. However, this time, somebody was automatically granted citizenship for his ancestors coming here in chains. But I mean, sure, if you want to be that asshole, we can do that.
What the fuck off?
Well, he was talking about immigration status, and I was saying, well, his immigration status is his ancestors came in chains, but that's
I'm gonna read. I'm about this close to reading.
He's a citizen of the United States of America.
Copy pasta.
He's a citizen of the United States of America. Yeah, sure, if you want me to. Not because Cam's racist, you know. No, what happened was NFL player Michael Bennett had a day off, went to go to the Mayweather-McGregor fight. He was there really quickly. He was leaving. There were what sounded like gunshots from somewhere either in the nightclub or nearby, and it really broke out into mass panic in Vegas. Now, this is where stories conflict a little bit, but according to him, he was immediately stopped and detained by police. He was held at gunpoint. He was forced in order to go face first on the ground. He was told, I'll blow your fucking brains out if you don't comply, whatever. He's asking what he did wrong. They're not really telling him anything. They're not answering these questions. They forcefully detain him. Some other officer puts a knee in his back, and he can't really breathe. They're holding his arms behind his back. They cuff him. They move him to a police car. He sits in the back seat for some undetermined amount of time. No one's answering his questions. No one's doing anything for him until they verify that he's an NFL player. They get his name and address and all this shit. And they let him go. He's alleging that this is a civil rights violation on excessive force, that it could be a civil rights violation based on race. He released a very powerful statement about it. That, I mean, I could look it up in quote.
Of course he did. You could, but earlier today, I remember saying that there wasn't a response from the police yet when this thread was developing, and I just Googled it, and now there actually is now.
Now quote what police officer or department issued that response, because I know what you're talking about, and it's a TMZ report.
No, this is literally from. Okay, this is a fantastic source. It's CBS Sports, but whatever. This is this is what the Here we go. According to McMahill. All right, so McMahill is, I guess, their police. He is the undersheriff of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. According to him, police received a call around 1:30 a.m. on Sunday about a possible active shooter who was believed to be somewhere around Dry's nightclub and the Cromwell Casino.
Sure,
When officers arrived at the hotel, it was a total chaos as hundreds of people were attempting to flee the supposed shooter. There's pictures from the Daily Mail, apparently, that I could go click on. And then after clearing the casino, a team of officers started heading towards the nightclub location. And while they were on their way there, they located an individual later identified as Bennett. And this is the actual quote from McMahill. He says,
wait, hang on. Pause. Matthew, it's a pleasure to have you with us. And I really appreciate your immigration insight.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I was just trying to.
You're not at all.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
So
I was able to put some light on that.
It was an absolute pleasure, sir.
Oh, is he leaving?
Yeah,
Good night.
Later, dude.
Spring again, but
shit. Sorry.
Anyway, yeah, okay.
So here's
converging on the nightclub.
Let's get the converging on the nightclub. Here's the statement from the undersheriff. He says, as they moved towards the nightclub, an individual later identified as Bennett was seen crouched down behind a gaming machine as the officers approached. Once Bennett was in the officer's view, he quickly ran out the south doors, jumped over a wall onto Flamingo Road east of Las Vegas Boulevard to traffic. They viewed that as suspicious, and that's why they handcuffed him. And then there's some more police bullshit.
Nothing to help the situation, but please continue.
Well, I mean, that at this point, the rest of the statement is just, the traditional police bullshit that you're going to hear at this point.
No, that's great. Okay, so I want to revise, and I want to see how this differs from his statement.
Okay,
hang on. He hears gunshots. Now, the police say they might have come from the club he was in. He's crouched down behind a gaming machine, hiding for his fucking life, right?
Sees police and runs.
And sees police and runs. Hey, guess what? I'm a criminal defense attorney and a former prosecutor, and in this situation, when I see cops show up, especially if they are armed and have guns out and shit, I'm gonna run now. Now I have backup. Now I assume I got covering fire. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
So they stop him, according to his statement again, gun to his head, tell him to get the fuck on the ground, which he then does. And we go through the rest of his statement. Now, if you want me to read his statement, I can.
Oh, James.
Continue.
Goodness.
What's up? What's up?
No, I scrolled down. So there's video.
I know. I've seen the video.
Obviously. And he is clearly putting a gun to his head.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah. No, I know. I've seen the video.
Yeah, okay. So, all right. If you're on the side of the cops at this point in time, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, well, no, wait.
Shit.
I want to.
He's got a gun to his head, dude.
I want to give the cop lovers a second. I want to give the cop lovers a second, because if you watch the video while he's being handcuffed, he's kind of acting a little uppity for a black man.
What?
It's a joke. It was a joke. It was he's really just asking, what did I do wrong? I did something wrong. I didn't do anything. And he's excited about it. I'm joking.
Bill, come back into frame.
I'm joking. Anyway.
Let's go.
Bill, did you hear what James just said?
I'm sorry.
No, I did not.
Bill.
Because my boyfriend called me, and I haven't talked to him in a while, and I haven't seen him in 3 weeks. So, sorry, I did not hear that.
Okay, I'll tell you. James, repeat it.
I said that
while you're on camera being recorded, please repeat that statement again.
Based on the videographic evidence I've seen, Mr. Bennett seemed a little uppity.
The guy that got attacked.
For a black man, he says.
It was a joke. Although it really worked nicely because
Bill, this is the guy.
The original delivery was perfect.
I haven't seen the video yet, though.
Well, anyway, so
listen to Bill.
Bill,
I have no strong feelings one way or the other.
Okay, fine.
All right. Well, here's my feelings because I posted them very clearly on Fermenting Opinions. I really didn't pull any punches.
Hey, I was I think I was healthily skeptical earlier.
Sure.
And not just, yeah.
Sure.
At no point.
Well, that's not necessarily true. If they made some kind of move or they were doing something that signaled they were an imminent threat, but not only that, but you had the ability to try to stop it essentially by being like, hey, motherfucker, now there's a pistol to your forehead. You know, like, don't make another move or I'll blow your brains out. That might be warranted if they're reaching for the nuclear button or something like an RPG or something very explosive and large, very close by, and you had to drop, and you could like snuck them with, oh, hey, this is a pistol in your face now. Stop it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Some combat moves,
like,
you know, like Rambo shit. Yes, that's warranted, though. I mean, if that existed, that's warranted. You could do that.
Oh my god!
Yeah, or if it's like Kim Jong Un or something.
Well, if it's Kim Jong Un, you should have shot him from about 50 yards out. But that's just.
But I feel like he could have gotten away with it if it was Kim Jong Un, right? That'd be fair.
I feel like he probably could have gotten away with it if it was Michael Bennett and he just shot him and didn't say anything.
Well, is he gonna get away with it? Because it's on fucking camera, dude.
Yeah, no, not anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if he's getting away with this one, man.
I mean,
there's not even apparently there's not even video.
Audio was recorded and said he looked dangerous. Look at him running. I shot him.
Well, there's not even video of him running.
Move. You know, like I was clear he was going to circle back around and come kill me. You know, I mean, what's the guy in South Carolina or North Carolina or whatever planted a taser and all kinds of shit on somebody and still was acquitted? Yeah, I'm pretty sure he could have got away with it because he's a cop. That's normally how it works. And I hate to say that because I have a lot of love for law enforcement, and 99.9% of law enforcement officers I know are good cops. But that doesn't mean shit. They still get away with murder all of the time.
Holy shit. Have you seen this video? There's the pictures of people fleeing, and it looks like they're all just like walking.
Well,
there's no way this is running.
Well, okay. In all fairness, for Michael Bennett, he's faster than the average human.
No. These people are like, this is not video. This is like actual like photos, and there is nobody in like the stance. It's like everybody's like looking at their phone, walking away. Like this is normal Saturday night bullshit.
Well, yeah, in Vegas, how many of them have wife and children they actually care about?
Oh my god! I know plenty of people that can like have wife and kids that they care.
I'm joking. I'm trying to profile here. Damn.
They can go to Vegas and then like go home. They can like what happen? This is why, because Vegas, what happens there stays there. So like no one has to ever know.
Yeah, I'm hauling ass to get out of there if I have a wife and children and I care about them.
I'm going there this month. Woo!
Oh yeah, there's video of the fleeing. It's these people are taking their time getting out of here.
Okay, so what's Bennett doing in that video?
You don't see him in this video. It's like
well
on
the other end of this, these are probably all like middle class to lower class deadbeats who aren't worth shit, and they're going to live, including his.
Fuck, James.
We can't give legal advice.
Okay, sorry. You can use appropriate physical force to restrain them or chase them down. What you cannot use is deadly or even less lethal force to stop them. That's an old school case out of Tennessee, actually. I think it was in the 80s. You cannot shoot a fleeing felon, period. Even if they're already a criminal felon, even if in that case you were already a known felon and they were also a suspect in another crime, you cannot shoot them as they run if they're unarmed. You can't do that. They have to be in imminent danger. Well, that's a whole other story. If he kept running and didn't stop, they would not have been within their rights to shoot. He stopped because he had guns pointed at him. My understanding is he stopped running because guns were pointed at him. And then they came up to him and put a gun to his head and told him, if you fucking move, I'll blow your fucking brains out. And he starts asking questions, and that's my understanding.
Well, Vegas historically had a real bad problem with racial profiling for a while, and then they went under some kind of like, it was like training, like bias training, and
it's called a federal consent decree. New Orleans is still under it.
Sure, yeah. What he said, and then the last I heard, it was some NPR thing where they said Las Vegas Police Department was on the up and up, and it was like on This American Life. So what probably happened is they got outside of their consent decree. They passed all the things they needed to do for the certain amount of time required for them to do it. New Orleans will probably be under consent decree for a long fucking time because New Orleans violated the shit out of racial rights for like 50 plus years. Lacey, did you see this at all today?
Oh, Lacey's well aware. Harry Connick Sr. You remember that man, right? Swoosh.
The former DA?
Yeah, for like 35 fucking years.
That
was his policy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. But,
yeah.
But there was a lot of, I think, racial animus underlying that approach, or it could have just been pitched as an effort to get a constituency and get votes, because here the DA is elected.
Leon, well, everywhere the DA is elected.
In Missouri.
In every jurisdiction in the United States of America, local DAs are
blur that out.
They're all elected. It's an elected office. Leon Canizero has been, however, in the Supreme Court of the United States every year since he's been in office for racial violations. Every year it's a new case. Every year they lose.
Mm-hmm.
The 4 or 5 years I worked for them, or no.
That's jury selection, man.
3 years. 3 years I worked for them. Every year we were there. Every year.
I don't know. I think that everywhere, I really do believe, and this is going to sound Dan Frank, but I do believe that most people are, I think, in their own minds, good at heart. But then you just get aggravated because of whatever makes your life more difficult to live. If it's you deem that it's someone's fault because you have to pay higher taxes and they just get to live at home on welfare, whatever your thing is. Like, I don't care what your story is, but I just feel like, I don't know, everyone really is nice. I just wish that we could figure out a way to get along and get past like our fundamental differences. And maybe it's not possible. I don't know.
That's like the sweetest naive thing I've heard in so long.
I know, and but I hope that that's like what's getting me through the dark days of a Trump presidency.
I think it's great coming from Lacey too, because I like to think I know Lacey pretty well, and she's like the least naive human being I know. Like, really
I wasn't trying to actually insult you or anything like that.
No, you didn't at all.
No, I didn't mean that insultingly or non-insultingly.
Okay,
is that she's very educated and people and groups of people and everything else.
I have my bad days.
Fuck Sheriff. Fuck.
So, do we got anything else we want to talk about before we?
Yeah, I'm sure he thinks that. I think white supremacists think they're doing the right thing too, because any kind of integration of color into the white race destroys it, and that's where evil comes from. I mean, does that make any Pause.
Wait. I want to ask a quick question while my stuff is boiling off water. Sorry I missed some of this because of my phone.
That's all right.
When y'all were talking about Sheriff Joe Arpaio, did anyone bring up the fake assassination attempt that he had?
We did not. Please inform us. It is hilarious.
Okay, so in 1999, Arpaio's staff rigged a fake assassination plot to try and, increase support for America's toughest sheriff, who was, a target of this local Unabomber who wanted to kill him. And they arrested the guy and they threw him in jail, and Arpaio just forgot about him. Forgot about him. And the guy sat in jail for I don't know how long. But eventually he filed a lawsuit in 2004. And after they found that he was not guilty of attempted murder, he sued Arpaio for $10 million.
For malicious prosecution, yes.
And sure, yeah, man. I can say big words like levetiracetam and sulfadalazine too.
Is that really a thing? Is that a thing that all pharmacists go to when I just use a general phrase? My sister does the same damn thing.
You use a bunch of words that I'm not familiar with, man.
Oh, sorry. Malicious prosecution, yes.
Malicious prosecution. There we go.
Yeah, basically, you had no right to prosecute me. Fuck you. I'm suing.
Yeah, and so taxpayers in Arizona ended up spending $1.1 million of public.
I'm laughing at Evan. Fuck you, Evan. Stop it.
It's a real problem.
No, seriously though. No, Bill has a good point. I want to hear what Bill's saying.
And so while y'all are talking about, obviously this guy is a racist who thinks he's doing the right thing. He clearly had complete disregard of the law from the get-go, because this happened in 1999.
So what you're positing here is that not only is he doing the wrong thing, but he intentionally fucking knows it, and he's pushing it in.
And I don't think a lot of people realize this. Joe Arpaio isn't just flagrantly and unconstitutionally racist, but he also just completely disregards the law when it benefits him politically. And
I completely agree with you, and I think you're absolutely right. When a federal judge,
but doesn't that change him?
Basically drops a 30 or 40 page order explaining to you how to enforce the Fourth Amendment properly, based on the fact that you just cost the state of Arizona and Maricopa County, millions and millions of dollars. And so we have this whole thing going on, and this judge takes the time to say, hey, look, bro, you're really doing this wrong. And let me explain the separation of powers under federal and state law. Let me explain how you can't racially profile people. Let me tell you why this policy is fucked. And then the next day you turn around and you're like, hey, Judge Snow or whatever, fuck you. I do what I want. I'm Judge Arpaio. I'm awesome. I'm judge, jury, and executioner. I do whatever the fuck I want. That's hugely problematic. Yes, it is. It is. Well, yes, I
think it's a clear just Trump rally in his hardline immigration base. It's all Arpaio is
left. Come on.
What do you mean? What he's doing. It's what he's doing. He's just trying to rally that base. He just got rid of Bannon. Come on, what? He's rallying his base.
I'm asking. You're at 30. Trump's at 35% approval rating.
And he wants.
Can we put a target number? we put a target number on the radicals that support him as like at least?
No, it's not radicals. It's not radicals, man, because most people don't know who the fuck Arpaio is. Most people just see him as, oh, that was a sheriff that was hard on immigration. You know what? My man is hard on immigration. He pardoned Arpaio.
Okay.
And look at him now. He's
Why do
repealing
you
the DACA. He's hard on immigration.
Why? Let's circle back around. But why do they feel that way?
Because that's how he was painted in the media. Is the guy, the immigration guy.
No. The guy hard on immigration. Why do they want the guy who's hard on immigration?
Why do they want the guy that's hard on immigration?
Yes.
Are you trying to bait me into saying because they're racist? I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna.
I know you're not, but you know that's the fucking
that's the answer that you're looking for.
I think part of it is also the fact that Arpaio was one of the very first people to hop on board the Trump train, and if we, one thing that I've seen repeatedly is Trump rewards his allies, no matter how morally repugnant they are, and no matter how, disgusting it might seem.
Completely agree with that. 100%.
Yeah.
Also,
I agree with that too.
We said he pardoned Arpaio.
Endgame Trump haters. Hold on. Endgame Trump haters. What about when he sided with the Democrats all day today?
No, it's not about look what somebody else did stupid that society all agrees now is stupid. It's about who is not being stupid in the moment.
That was too logical for me to respond with a Trump response. I'm sorry.
I want to go back to James's bullshit.
I mean, honestly,
if you want to trigger liberals, pardoning Joe Arpaio is a great way to do it.
He's not wrong there. I'm an expert. I
feel like the bigger slam dunk, if you want to trigger liberals, is killing DACA. Again, I mean, but
he was doing Arpaio last news.
Showing how it's. I think Matt did a good job of showing how it's not necessarily interpreted as much law as we thought it was, but at the same time, it's still fucking unconstitutional. You can't just ignore.
It is, but most people do. You can say you can't ignore because you're a smart guy.
Read the Constitution, James.
See, my issue here.
Oh
no! Oh, 10th Amendment, 10th Amendment rage. But anyway, seriously, hang on. No. This is the deal. This is the deal for real. Here's the issue. I get it on a states' rights issue for like marijuana. If the states are declaring it legal on something that should have been their jurisdiction in the fucking first place, because the federal government should not hold criminal law at all. That is traditionally a state's right. But anyway, so if the federal government is saying our policy is not to fuck with states' rights on medical marijuana or recreational marijuana, I get it. That makes sense. You're adhering to the Constitution and you're using prosecutorial discretion to actually make a smart move. However, if your other end of that is to say, well, we're going to go ahead and usurp Congress and we're going to order or ask or strongly fucking suggest and then ignore anyway if they don't do what we want, states and the federal government to comply to our, I guess, modified immigration policy that is in direct conflict with law that Congress has passed, where Congress has the purview over what is constitutional, what is not, what is within the realm of their power, I think you're running into a much bigger problem. But on the other hand of that, like I said earlier, was if it's really being implemented as prosecutorial discretion and it's not a policy that's set in stone, I don't think it's as unconstitutional. That's how I feel about it, but apparently...
Great one, David.
But apparently it was an Obama policy that we shit on once Trump became president, and then Trump was like, hey, you got arrested for possession of pot, and you got reported to ICE, and you're part of DACA. Fuck you. Back to El Salvador, bitch. Okay, and he was apparently doing that. So it's
That's
really
actually an exact quote from Sean Spicer about 4 or 5 months ago.
That's hilarious, man. Oh my God, Evan.
So all I'm saying is that if that's the way it was being upheld under Trump, obviously DACA has no teeth. It means nothing. It was just a Trump policy or an Obama policy for prosecutorial discretion. It's not unconstitutional at that point. It was unconstitutional while he did it. But if we're going to implement it otherwise, and we're just like, whatever, who gives a shit? Why do we put this huge thing out where we're like, we're getting rid of DACA and they have 6 months to fix it? You know, who cares?